Hi, everyone. I think we'll start now. Hopefully, a few more people will come on through. So I could call, I guess, Aoife and Edel and Katherine on to say hi. So thanks so much for coming. I think this is a great project, and I'm so happy they're here and they're going to tell us a bit more about it. So I might just kick off now. So I'm going to give a really short presentation just with a bit of context to the funding we're talking about today and the work of the Creative Europe desk. But really then I'm going to hand right over to the Murals for Communities project. So this is being recorded, so we'll be able to view it afterwards. So we'll send that link on and please share it widely. So now I'm just going to kick right off with my presentation, and I'll see Edel and Katherine and Aoife in a few minutes then. So why, when we were talking about the October series, really what we want to do, we're finishing up the current Creative Europe program. So really this year is about showcasing and highlighting the Irish projects that have been funded over the last 7 years. The other thing really is for a lot of people and a lot of our work, we're talking about European institutions and applications, and really it can seem like something that's quite out there. But really these projects are all being delivered at really local level. These projects take place all across Ireland. They engage with local communities, they work with Irish artists, and obviously they provide huge benefit to Irish audiences. So really this is an opportunity where the Creative Europe desk can take a step back and we can platform the projects themselves so people can get an understanding of really what they're about and the huge benefit they bring to communities here. So just briefly, I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes. We're going to then hear from Edel Tobin from Waterford Walls and Katherine Collins from Waterford City and County Council about the Murals for Community project. After that, Aoife and I will come back and we'll just have a conversation with Edel and Katherine, and then we'll really open it up to the floor. So this is your opportunity to kind of hear from your peers and see what it's been like running this project, especially in, as everyone knows, these challenging times. So there's a chat function there to the right you should see. So please send everything through there. And that's really it. So we'll just kick off. So many of you probably know us already, but I'll just go through briefly what we do. So we're funded by the European Commission and the Arts Council, and we're the national contact point for all queries related to European funding for culture. So our remit is to provide information, advice and assistance to Irish applicants and to promote the program as widely as possible at local, regional, national and now Zoom level. We collaborate throughout the year with key sectoral stakeholders and agencies and organizations. So I would say if anyone would feel it would be beneficial for Aoife or myself to come and give a presentation to your board or your staff, do get in touch. We're always happy to do that. We also have a huge network of other Creative Europe desks in the 41 countries participating in the program. So we work with them quite a lot. Increasingly, we assist directly with organizations seeking European partners for projects. So we help with that. And then we also have worked closely with our colleagues in the media program on cross-sectoral events. So one thing I always say to people, before you kind of get caught up in the technicalities of European funding, really what you have to have at the forefront of your mind at all times is, why does the EU fund culture? So obviously at the top is, you know, the recognition of the intrinsic value of culture to all of our lives. So that is there and that is a given. But how they can attach funding is that they have to link it to broader European policy and treaty commitments. So really that's something to kind of keep in your mind. If you're talking about the policy document that really has informed the current program and certainly the next program, which is launching next year, the next 7-year program, it's the European Agenda for Culture. So I'm happy to kind of send through that link. But really, you know, it's important to kind of understand the broader kind of policy context for funding. So what are they really hoping to achieve? And one thing I say to people all the time is the understanding that you, as an arts or culture organization or a third level institution, you are the conduit to the people, to the citizens that the EU really wants to reach with its funding. So really, we're talking about, if you're talking about the new agenda for culture, what I would say is everything now is being driven, and this is a really almost kind of facile way to say it, but the idea that culture can keep us together. So the model now is really one around social inclusion. And you'll see that very clearly with the Murals for Community project. So it's arts activities actually being used in a model around social inclusion and social regeneration. So really, this is why I kind of say, link it back to policy. So in order to be a European project or achieve European funding, you need to demonstrate a big impact by addressing program priorities, which I'll go into. But the real almost kind of irony there is, on one hand, you're talking, systemic impact, such a large impact, but the projects themselves are really realized at a very kind of local or community level. And that's something to keep in mind. So this is the current program. There's been almost 1.5 billion over 7 years. 454 million has gone to the culture sector. So that's every art form outside of, or every sector outside of film and TV, which is the media program. So I would say, really, it's a big hurdle sometimes to think, how do you get a European project? I'm sure many of you have done them, but the thing to remember is this is secured funding over 7 years, and it's very difficult to imagine that in an either national or local context. So this is the current budget, and we'll be looking to the next program. I have a slide on that in a couple of minutes, which will start in 2021 and run through 2027. And there's some indication that there will be an increase, and that is especially due now to COVID, which is good news. So the thing with European funding is they're very structured around set priorities. And the priorities for this current program are transnational mobility of both works and artists and people, capacity building, and audience development. And a recent introduction following on from the adoption of the European Agenda for Culture has been intercultural dialogue. So we'll see with the Murals for Community project, you'll see clearly that they really framed their project around transnational mobility and capacity building. But the thing that's interesting about European funding is once you meet these priorities and you can demonstrate that you're meeting them, the range of what you can do is really enormous. So what we're going to talk about today, and we'll have another presentation on terrible European names for things in EU speak, but it's a funding strand called Support for European Cooperation Projects. So the vast majority of funding under the Creative Europe Culture subprogram comes through cooperation projects. It's something like 313 million over the 7 years. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So what is a cooperation project? Essentially, it's a multi-annual artistic project that involves partners between organizations in different countries. It has to demonstrate that it could not be achieved solely at national level. So that's what they call European added value. It has to demonstrate that it achieves common objectives across borders. So in the case of, say, a Murals for Community project, if you're talking about the idea that there's areas in urban cities that have been gone to ruin or experience large-scale kind of social exclusion or any of these things, that's something that's affecting cities across Europe. So you could see there, actually, if you had multiple people work together on the same kind of barrier they're facing, the benefits could be wider. This program is actually currently, it's not open to cooperation projects, it's not open to individuals to apply, but artists and artistic activity is really the heart of these projects. Looking back on the last 7 years, we actually had a very good run, as they say. So our overall success rate, which I didn't include here, is just over 30% of projects applied with an Irish partner or lead were successful, which is above the average for the whole program. So that has translated to 62 cooperation projects funded involving 66 Irish organizations with 5 lead organizations. So 5 Irish organizations have taken on the administrative lead. So you can see again why we're so happy to have the Murals for Communities project, because it's a huge deal when an Irish organization can lead a project. So in terms of funding, there's been the project value. So the value across all the partners involved in the project has been 42 million, just over 42 million. And the direct grant aid to Ireland has been just over 4 million. And again, the next two, you can see how wide these projects stretch into Europe. So there's activities in over 30 countries, and there's been 436 European partners involved. So you can see the scale here, but you can also see how well Ireland actually performs in this as a small country on the periphery of Europe. So looking ahead to the next program, so this is really, Aoife and I are really kind of coming now to kind of say to people, start thinking about the next program, because there's a lot of things there that would indicate that Ireland could be actually quite well positioned within that program. So one of the big policy objectives that's coming into the new program, and this will cross every funding program you might be applying to, even if it's Europe for Citizens or Erasmus Plus or Horizon 2020, would be the idea of gender equality. So that's going to be a big one in the new program. The other one would be what they're calling a Green Europe or sustainability, addressing projects or activities that address climate change. There'll be a continued emphasis on social inclusion and intercultural dialogue. There'll be continued supports for individual artist mobility. So the European Commission last year introduced a pilot project called iPortunis. We can share, Aoife's already shared the link there. And it is opening again this December. So there will be a continued funding stream open to individual artists, which is brilliant news. The other thing the Commission is trying to do is recognizing that individual sectors have their own problems, essentially, and need a targeted approach. So there will be sectoral supports to both music and theatre. The other thing that is really good news, and we want to see as many people as possible are kind of ready to go when the program launches next year, would be the Commission would really like to see a higher budget in the early years of the program to kind of address the fallout from COVID. So that's something that's really good news. And then the other thing is all of these projects, cooperation projects, require national co-funding. And that can be a barrier for people. So really, the Commission now is saying they're looking, so it currently stands between 50 and 60%, or 50% and 40% that you need to raise for any budget. And they're looking at essentially lowering that. So you'll have to raise less. So there's lots of good news. I guess the bad news is in some ways that it's still being kind of thrashed out at Parliament level. So it's unlikely we'll hear an announcement about the program before next year. So that's a bit of a shame, but we're here to kind of say let's get ready in a way. So finally, this is my slide to say to people of what can we do now? We don't have a lot of detail about the new program. We mightn't have partners yet. What should we be doing? And really, what I would say is the first thing to do is actually take a long, hard look at your own organization's current activities and your future plans and see is working, our international projects or partnerships or transnational collaborations, what you want to do. And if they are, this is a brilliant opportunity for you. It's much harder when it's something that isn't necessarily within, your long-term plans, because then you're adding additional stuff on to what is probably a very full program of activities. So the other thing is to look at, assess your own organizational capacity to take this on. If it's something that maybe you're not quite there in terms of scale, look at, assess your national networks and contacts and see if you can kind of jointly build capacity by working together, which was the case with the Murals for Communities project. And then obviously keep in touch with the Culture Office for advice. So that's me done. So I'm now going to just call back Katherine Collins from Waterford City and County Council. So Katherine is the Waterford Cultural Quarter Project Manager. And then I'll also call Edel Tobin, who is the Festival Director and Project Manager for Waterford Walls. So I'll just bring your presentation up. So there we go. And I'll take myself off there.
Great, thanks very much for all of that information. That's great, Katie. So yeah, we're Murals for Communities, and I suppose we're very much what we say we're going to do. It's all about developing capacity around murals and mural art, and then developing social engagement through murals. I suppose is a different way of engaging with communities. So my job really is Waterford Cultural Quarter project manager, is to take this part of the city, which used to be a thriving part of the city when it was a really good port city, but like lots of European cities, that industrial heritage and industrial economy died away. So we're left in a vacuum now of this post-industrial city, particularly along the port area. And it was a really, really thriving part of the city. But now that we've lots of old Georgian buildings and we've lots of new developments that are not fantastically well built. So my job really, I suppose, words like community, creativity, creative enterprise, all of those terms really fit in with Murals for Communities as a project. And the background to it was Waterford City and County Council, along with Wexford and Kilkenny, decided to bid for European Capital of Culture in that 2015 to 2017 period of time. Now, we were unsuccessful and Galway won, which might have been a poison chalice in considering what happened, but at the time we were, of course, devastated. But out of that bid, this idea of developing the cultural quarter grew. We also really broadened our horizons in terms of engaging with the EU through the bidding process. So opened our eyes really to what was available in terms of funding. And we applied to Urbact, and we were successful in being a partner in a project called Creative Spirits. And shortly afterwards, because we built up good partnerships, we applied to Creative Europe. We made good connections with the city in Lithuania, Kaunus, and we knew they were going to be bidding for European Capital of Culture in 2022. So I suppose it strengthened that kind of relationship. And at the same time, Edel was working really, really hard in developing her murals. So I suppose we were open to an opportunity, and Edel, with the Walls Festival and the various work she was doing, was looking for some support. So we went together in this application process to Creative Europe. We took a decision, I suppose a strategic decision, to work with a Dutch company to make that application. Now, obviously, we had to do all the groundwork and develop it, but they did the actual write-up. In one way, it could be considered expensive to do that, but on the other hand, it was a fantastic achievement for us. They wrote the application and we achieved like the top money you can get for this particular type of project is 200,000, and we got 199.99. We got the most money we could get. So it was actually a really good investment for us. So we began in September 2018 with a kickoff meeting in Brussels. Myself and somebody from the Walls project travelled over to Brussels for a 2-day project management meeting, which was a whirlwind of absolute EU speak, completely bamboozled by the end of it, but it was a really good opportunity to at least start learning the terminology. We had some experience from being a partner in the Urbact program, but being a lead project manager, I suppose, was a whole new ball game for us. So I can talk a little bit more about that. It's very in if people want to know, but it's not the most exciting of topics. So Murals for Communities, it really is what it says. It's how to use mural creation to engage communities, particularly the hard to reach, who would not necessarily engage with town hall talks or different ways of engaging with your local authority. So that's, it is what it says. And then it's a 2-year project. Waterford Council is the project manager, the project lead. The Walls project then is delivering our delivery agent, if you like. So they're doing all the hard work in terms of out there working with communities. and with the artists and so on. Our partners, as I said, Kaunus in Lithuania was quite a natural partner for us. And the Netherlands, we are working with a group called Street Art Foundation, and that's what they are. They're a street arts foundation. That is their main work. So, and the group in Kaunus is actually a university, so they're leading on, I suppose, that research background. So that's kind of the background. I'm going to hand you over to Edel now for the more interesting pieces around how to actually deliver the European project.
Okay, thanks, Katherine. Oh, sorry. So I suppose what Murals for Communities, the project is all about, is where a team of artists from 3 different countries, Lithuania, Heerleen and Ireland, work together as a team of artists who work with, I think it's 18 community groups in total in the 3 countries, through workshops and then paint and create 18 pieces of art, of mural art, that's going to be left in each country. Just speaking on behalf of Waterford's leg of the journey, yeah, so just there, 3 community groups in each country each year this team of artists paints with. And what you call it, yeah, in from the Waterford side of things, we decided that because Waterford City and County Council had partnered with us, and a big reason why Waterford Council partnered with our work with Waterford Walls is the fact that we're working really towards the same objective, and that's about regeneration of a part of Waterford City that, like Katherine said, has been a bit down on its luck. It was a thriving port city, O'Connell Street area, and they want to develop it into the cultural quarter area of the city. And so we decided in the first year of Murals for Communities that the best, and that is a very multicultural part of Waterford City as well. I think there's something like 29 or 30 nationalities living in the cultural quarter part of the city. So the first year of Murals for Communities, we decided that the community groups that we'd focus to work with were new immigrants that had settled in Waterford, and to find out what their experience of Waterford is, how they feel, do they feel integrated? Have they made feel welcome? And then our team of artists painted with those 3 community groups. Now, the one thing about the Murals for Communities and the Creative Europe project is they want a handbook written and a report written at the end of the whole project to see how successful it was and what the impact was. So one of the things that we had to agree on as 3 countries was the questions that we were going to ask each of the community groups in each country. They all had to be of the same standard, because it was not like it's a bit like explaining a scientific experiment. You kind of have to use the same questions to try and get the response or the information that you need from each different city. Then you evaluate it in the first year, and then you test it out in the following year. So in the first year, the first 3 groups that we worked with in Waterford were new community groups. And what the workshop process involved with the community is the team of artists go in and work through workshops. And in those workshops, they ask a specific set of questions that are agreed on by the 3 countries. And those questions elicit ideas. And from those ideas, the artists go and interpret those ideas into sketches. And then those sketches are, we meet with the community groups again, the community leaders. And basically, once we have their approval, we go ahead and we paint the artworks. So in terms of another part of the Murals of Communities project is capacity building in artists. What that means is creating employment opportunities and to help professionalise artists, in particular young local emerging artists. So what that involved basically was the management team working with the local emerging artists and doing what we normally do outside of this project, which is part of what the Walls project does, is large-scale commissioned artwork all over the country. So basically we worked with those young artists and we matched them up with clients. One was, there was 6 different businesses, and basically one was a coffee trader, I think another one was an IT company, another one was a bike shop, the fourth was a hotel, another one was a pub, and basically we helped them to put together a portfolio of work on how mural artwork would benefit and present a piece of mural art that would benefit those businesses. And we got them to superimpose the artwork on the wall and present that to the businesses. And that was actually a particularly successful part, I think, of the project, because this wasn't necessarily supposed to be the outcome, but basically because they were so impressed with the work, 4 out of 6 of the businesses in Waterford asked those artists to come and paint the actual piece that they presented. So we were particularly delighted about that. Then in terms of community engagement, besides the workshop for eliciting ideas that the artists then interpreted into sketches, we decided in Waterford, because we had such a lot of people asking about street art workshops, that we decided to give each of the groups as well, we gave a street art workshop with the families and the children. So that it's street art anyway is particularly, and mural art is a very engaging community, very engaging for the tool for the community, because besides the fact that obviously it's on the street and it's public, it's also very immediate. So it's a natural fit for any group wanting to engage the community or access community in a very fun kind of a fun way, I suppose. So in Waterford in 2019, here are 3 of the pieces that were produced. The first one was by Lithuanian artist Timothy. He worked with the Sudanese group that are based here in Waterford. And the piece behind this or the concept behind it was putting out the fire. By uniting together, we can put out the fire. And I think more than now, considering it was done in 2019, I think now more than ever, that's a really poignant message. But that was the main message that came out of that Sudanese workshop, which was very interesting. And then the second piece was done by Jascha. Jascha is from the Netherlands. And Jascha worked with a Syrian family who were part of that community group that we worked with. And basically, this is a piece that is documenting or showing this Syrian woman's journey from Syria over to Ireland and to Waterford. And then the third piece was done by Magda Carroll. She's our local artist here in Waterford, and she worked with the Polish group, and who I think, Katherine, am I right? The Polish and Lithuanians, I think, are the biggest group to have settled in Waterford, isn't it? Yeah. And her idea was, and a big thing for the Polish community was green areas that they would love to see more of in the city. But also a big thing was about their journey is carrying your home is where your heart is, and that you carry your home on your back. And so that's what the whole concept behind this was. So then in 2020, we decided to work with groups that were, I suppose, marginalised and that find that they have very little, they find it hard to have a voice in society. And the first group that we worked with was adults with learning difficulties. The second was with a group suffering from addictions or recovering from addictions. And the third group was a nursing home, a residents of a nursing home. So the first piece here is Hearts Together by Aches. He's the Irish artist that was working on the project this year. And I might tell you just a little bit about actually how we implemented Murals for Communities this year because of COVID. We had to bring a lot of it online, and also we had to basically, because the international artists couldn't travel, we had to basically come up with a whole new plan of how we were going to create the mural artwork, which in general, I think we're really delighted about. But just the first one was Aches. He worked with the group recovering from addictions, and it was about hearts together and staying together. The second piece was by Magda Carroll, and you can see that that's with Martinus from Lithuania, the artist from Lithuania. And that was with the residents group in the nursing home. And the third piece was a collaboration with Burke in Netherlands and Irish artist Decoy. Now, this year in 2020, Decoy and Magda Carroll were the two local artists, emerging artists, if you like, and then Aches was the main main mural artist on the Irish side. But in terms of trying to deliver it this year, when COVID hit in March and we kind of went into lockdown, we had to come to a decision very, very quickly. Actually, it was before that we kind of realised that we were going to have to either extend the delivery, would it go into 2021, or would we try and deliver it in 2020? Now, it was very fortunate in the sense that, I suppose it was us that were working on it, because we also have an annual festival every August, Waterford Walls. And we were obviously going through the same kind of issues with Waterford Walls. So we came to an agreement, the three partner cities, that we would like to deliver it in 2020. But what we have to do is come up with a whole new plan. And one of the big things was, first of all, we brought all the workshops through Zoom. And secondly, we decided, because the international artists, Lithuania and Netherlands, couldn't travel, we decided to partner them up with the local artists, and basically that they would work together on the sketch. The international artists would work on the sketch from the workshop, and then work together with the local artists who would paint the mural. And luckily we were working, I suppose, with an incredible bunch of artists, because it's not many that could work in that capacity or work like that, but it all came together. And these are really beautiful reminders now of the artwork that was produced in an incredibly difficult situation this year. So that's the 6 pieces of art in Waterford. In Heerleen in 2019, you have the 3 pieces, again produced by Magda, Timothy and Wesley. And then in Kaunus in 2019, part of the trans mobility part of it was that now, I don't want to confuse everybody, but basically there's a group of 6 artists, and basically that 3 of that 6 artist team move from city to city. So Magda again painted in Kaunus from Ireland. Wesley in Kaunus in Lithuania in 2019, and then Morphy in Lithuania. And then in Kaunus in 2020, again, we had another 3 pieces produced. And again, they would have been produced the same and created the same way that they were done in Waterford. Remote workshops, and then the local artists in each city worked with the international artists to produce the Irish one, and yeah. So,
okay, Edel, will I take over from you? Yeah. Give you a break. Thanks very much, Edel. And I have to say huge respect to the artists, because it's not everybody you could ask to turn around and deliver somebody else's vision and somebody else's artwork. And we had a lot of discussion around it, to be honest, to say, look, with this work in 3 different countries, 3 different cultures, lots of different artists, and they were fantastic, I have to say. So really well done to all of the artists and the partners, because it was a big pivot and a big mindset change to move completely away in terms of how do we deliver it, with keeping, as Edel said, that scientific question nearly, staying true to that and seeing, does this method work? So as Edel alluded to, one of our outputs is a handbook. I suppose the handbook will be more geared to the policy maker, the decision maker, who ultimately generally is going to be our funder. So it's to show them that, you know, the outcome of our project, but how it can be adaptable and flexible as well, depending on the needs of a city. And, you know, I think we'll be able to show how flexible artists can be, that it's not a one size fits all, you know, people can be flexible. So we're going to do the handbook, but because I suppose we've done for ourselves a step-by-step through how exactly one could deliver this project, how to identify community groups, how to identify artists, and how to put it together, we'd hope to make, I suppose the handbook is kind of a short visual piece with more an advocacy piece, but we'll also try and deliver a step-by-step guide for maybe local authorities or funders who want to deliver this type of a programme. We've also written 2 methodologies, one around community engagement with that scientific research piece from Kaunus, the Kaunus University, and the Dutch partners developed a handbook around capacity building for artists, including that business piece as well, to help businesses understand the value that mural art can bring in terms of animating their business and their brand. So we've a lot that we want to say, and we will be publishing all of that at the very end of the project, kind of November, December time, on our website, which is muralsforcommunities.eu. We're also developing, because we have these beautiful images, we have some budget left, so we're going to develop our nice online leaflet and also printed leaflet that we will send out to policymakers, so local authorities and national bodies in Ireland, across the EU, just to really help people see the outcome of this type of project. So that's quite exciting for us. The other output that we have written into our application is that we would deliver a conference. Now, conference was meant to be, as conferences always were up to this year, in that we would have had people coming to Waterford into a venue, sitting there. We would have had a day-long series of events, as well as our partners visiting from their countries to do kind of a final wrap-up. So that's not going to happen. So what we decided to do, this is the second year where we're hosting Create Fest, which is a festival of creativity, very much geared at creative industries. So we're going to host Murals for Communities, and we're going to host various talks about murals for communities within that festival of creativity, because, you know, it's a similar type audience, would be interested in both. So at least we're getting that opportunity to do the final conference and draw in hopefully a good crowd to see the outcome. Then just quickly, I suppose, in terms of synergies and speaking about how the local authority and the Walls Project as an arts organisation, I think that the relationship has really strengthened and developed over the past 2 years. It's a strong relationship anyway, because the Waterford Walls Festival is fantastic, and I'm sure some of you have heard of it or have maybe even come to Waterford to see the murals here. And I think the city is becoming more and more established and seen as being a kind of an outdoor art gallery due to the work of the Waterford Walls Festival. But because I suppose we're working on this at kind of the policy level and really examining how murals can be effective within a city, particularly with engaging community, it gives us a huge opportunity to work more together. I think it's given the Walls Project another view on how to work with community groups, including schools and community groups and agencies and all the rest using this methodology. So it's been really successful for both the local authority in looking at murals and culture and art as a way of engaging community, and also for the Walls Project. So we also got an opportunity, Galway 2020, as we know, unfortunately, just really never got going due to a storm at the start and all the other misfortunes. But they are hosting, I suppose, a local authority series of events as part of their programme. And IPB, the insurance company, were co-funding projects to go to Galway to deliver projects. So we applied for that co-fund and were successful. So we the local authority co-funds the other part of that. So Edel and her team are bringing Murals for Communities to Galway 2020 once Level 5 does whatever it's going to do. And, you know, it's a fantastic opportunity to showcase really at that national and EU level the work that we've been working on for the past 2 years. So that is my piece. If anybody wants the leaflet or would like to see that, it'll be on muralsforcommunities.eu in a couple of weeks when we have it finalised. And also we invite everybody to attend Create Fest. If you Google Create Fest or look it up on social media, you should be able to find us there and get all the details. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. That was amazing. It's funny, I have a number of questions written down here and you've kind of answered them all. So I'll see, because I mean, one thing maybe that I'd like to kind of hear a bit more about is, you know, the partnership that came together for the project, because it seems that it wasn't clear. Was it something that came out of the bid, or Edel, did you have relationships with these kind of partners or some of the artists before, you know, the application, and how the kind of partnership worked kind of coming together for the application?
Are you talking about the other countries? Or are you talking about Waterford City and County Council?
In the first instance, the other European countries.
The other countries came, no, I didn't have contacts in those countries. We did have artists from those countries that had come over to Waterford Walls before, but I hadn't worked with Street Art Foundation and Kaunus University. That was as a result of the application process, where we knew we wanted to work with 3 different cities that had a similar background and heritage to Waterford City in terms of size, and the fact that they were kind of cities in decline that were prime cities to regenerate using mural art and street art. So we did a bit of research when we were doing the application, when we were writing the application, and basically reached out to different groups in different countries, including Netherlands and Kaunus. And yeah, we decided then after discussing that we're the best fit for this particular project.
The local authority had developed a relationship with Kaunus because they were part of our URBACT project. So we didn't have the relationship with the university, but we did have a relationship with the local authority, who were able to direct us to the university as people who had an interest in developing the research piece around community engagement. And we're also they had a relationship with ICP, Innovative Creative Projects, who were they're kind of beginning their journey into mural art. So they are the partner who would have the least amount of experience in mural art. So I think they're learning a lot going through this process.
And do you think, because what we sometimes see is that partners kind of continue working and maybe the project kind of develops and goes in as another application. Do you see that, this partnership will continue in some way, even outside of a Creative Europe project?
Well, I think Street Art Foundation is a really strong partner for us. The university, maybe not so much. As I said, they're really finding their feet and they're working with a delivery agent. So there's some opportunity there, but I think Street Art Foundation, from my perspective anyway, is a stronger partner because that's what they do, is street art. So they have a very clear remit. So if we were to, they have a lot of connections in with disadvantaged youth and different groups like that. So they'd be a very strong partner for us to look to Erasmus Plus or different programs like that. I don't know if you have a different perspective, Edel.
I don't really, but the one thing I do think that there's definitely more room to develop is the whole, there's a lot more room to grow it as well, is the whole concept and the project of Murals for Communities. I actually I think that there's a lot more work that can be done on it, if that was possible. I haven't really thought about partners in it, but definitely in terms of potential of the project, I think it's got great potential for further work. Yeah, I'd love to see that happening.
And one thing that was interesting or struck me when I was listening to you guys talk is that it seems like the project, within the framework of the 2 years of the funding, has actually grown and changed in ways that you mightn't have anticipated when you were kind of writing that application, or the application was going in, however, long ago. So is that true? Has it kind of expanded as you're doing it, or changed? I mean, I know it had to adapt to COVID, but even outside of that.
Oh, 100%. Like when you write the application, it's an idea, it's a concept. It's only by implementing an idea, no matter how structured or organized you are, when it comes to working with people and with community, it opens your eyes and things kind of change and go in a direction that you totally wouldn't have seen. And also the fact that it was a 2-year project gave you the time to actually evaluate how the project went in 2019, and then to actually kind of inform for then the following year properly, rather than doing everything, kind of together. And then, of course, with COVID, that was a whole new ball game then in 2020, in terms of trying to deliver that and trying to get, artists to paint another, to cooperate together and collaborate together, to have one international artist painting or working remotely and working with the local artists on the ground. It was completely different project to watch in a really good way though.
And did it seem like, because what I've heard kind of from other people, did you find more people kind of on the ground in Waterford were getting involved, as it kind of went on?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more people that would have loved to have been involved, but unfortunately, due to, we were limited by the number of groups and that we could work with and all the rest. But definitely there's an awful lot of interest in it. And then even further outside Waterford now with Galway 2020, inviting us up. We're going to be working with groups in Ishboffin and in Spiddle. And I've actually met with and spoken with about, I'd say about 30 different groups in Galway that were dying to be involved in it, But again, we were limited by what we could do. So we kind of had to go with what we could do. But yes, 100%. There's an awful lot of interest in it.
And as well, from my perspective within the local authority, I spent about a year. Our team was actually based in the planning office, which was interesting in that department, which was, it's really good synergy because you get to learn how that side of the local authority works. But all of the local authorities at the moment are developing the development plans for the local authorities for the next 4 or 5 years. At kind of national level feeds down to regional level, goes all the way down to local level. And a lot of the development plan, it has to go to public consultation and then go back and be redrafted and go to public consultation. So they're trying to figure out, look, if we get 3% of people to turn up to town hall meetings or those kind of things, and it's usually very vocal voices. So I was explaining to them how they could look at doing something like Murals for Communities as a way of getting people to look at their own small areas and say, well, what do we want this to look like in a period of time, using a very visual medium like murals. Now, unfortunately, COVID caught up with us and we weren't able to go down that path. But I think there's huge scope for the likes of local authorities or anyone developing plans or trying to visualize ideas outside of a normal framework of written text or maps, something that people can actually get their hands stuck into. I think it's a really good way for a local authority to approach visualizing through this method.
And I think that's something, that was kind of on my list here as well is, and it's clear that it is, but a model that you see could possibly be replicated in other counties or other areas. Because I think, what's amazing about this project is the absolute alignment between what your two respective organizations want to achieve. And that, that is amazing. So I think, that's something we try to say to people is if your capacity is an issue to deliver on everything that you're meant to be delivering, look to your national partners.
And I would say I would struggle to see, and I do struggle to see how small arts organizations can manage the project management aspect of this, because at least within the local authority, I have that whole background of, there's somebody in finance to ask a finance question, or there's somebody, there's always someone to pick up the phone and ask a question too around the project side of it. I think it would be difficult to be a project lead and deliver all of the artistic piece without a full-time competent person. Now we joined as a lead without really having had experience of Creative Europe specifically. If I was in an ideal world, we would have partnered on a Creative Europe project to maybe just to take baby steps and develop the skills. But at the same time, we're here now and we're delivering it. And it's been a really good experience from my perspective and the local authorities' perspective as well.
I mean, I think that's the thing, and that's why you'll see there's so few Irish leads in a way. And the thing to kind of stress, to people listening is it's an equal artistic partnership, but one organization has to take the administrative lead. So, there's a lot of Create here in Dublin. They were the lead on a large scale, and they'll absolutely do another project, but they're saying we won't be a lead next time, or it won't be a large scale. There's probably a season for doing these, kind of things as a lead, but it doesn't mean, you couldn't be involved in another project.
Yeah.
I just saw someone had a question there asking again, just before I forget, when Create Fest is on.
Sorry, Create Fest is on from the 5th to the 7th of November. It's all online. So we are still pulling the program together. So if you Google us today, you won't see very much, but Google us in a week and hopefully we'll be completely populated with all sorts of wonderful talks and panels. So we're putting it together this week.
And Aoife, did you, I know you had some questions for Katherine and Edel, did you?
I think you've kind of answered lots of the areas we were thinking about, but one of them is, did you find that the Creative Europe program allows for more kind of developmental work because they run across like your one I think is 2 years, but that you could do more in-depth work where you might not be able to do that year to year?
Yeah. Like like I was saying earlier, like I found it really helpful that we were able to do. We delivered the project over 2 years, because after the first year you were able to like do a proper, and that's part of the process with Creative Europe. It's very much about reporting and evaluating, and that's to feed into the next year. So that was a really good opportunity for us to kind of see and to meet as partners on things that worked, and had we achieved everything that we needed to do or needed to achieve, and what areas of weakness, so that we'd like look into that and feed that into the following year. And definitely, I think the one thing that we were particularly delighted about in Waterford was that business aspect of it, where we worked with our local artists to present to different businesses on the value of mural art and what it brings to a business. And from the artists and the client's point of view, it was a really, really successful program. Because like I said, out of the 6 businesses, and that wasn't supposed to be part of the outcome, is they chose and they asked specifically for the presentations to actually come to fruition. So they were all painted outside of Murals for Communities, which was great program. So yeah, I thought it was good that way, the way it was set up and the way it was organised. Gave you a chance to take a breather before heading into
Yeah.
And just a very final word from me in terms of the overall project. Having, I suppose, been heavily involved in the European projects for the last 2 or 3 years, looking at Creative Europe for culture, whatever problem you think you have in your city, it's replicated right across Europe somewhere, post-industrial cities, when you start delving into it, so many cities have similar projects, but 100 different solutions. So even if you don't want to jump into a project, like Urbach chose best practice examples, and Creative Europe showcases lots and lots of its projects as well. So it's really worth looking at the projects, even to give you ideas, or, you might see a good idea and say that would work here, but let's adapt it in a different way and get different partners. So I just think it's really worthwhile for a local authority in particular to see the benefits of working with the European solutions, if you like.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So this is a comment that came in. It says, well done all, hard to keep energy going and not getting fatigued. Are you fatigued?
No.
Would you do it again?
No, we won't succumb to the fatigue.
No, and we're hoping, maybe not immediately, but we'd love to do an Erasmus Plus project based on this, and looking at maybe how to bring disadvantaged youth. We have WWETB with their Youth Reach facility in the Cultural Quarter for early school leavers. So there's huge possibility. Would it be the project manager again? I don't know, but certainly.
Again, Katherine.
I was threatening to mute Katherine or Edel. They said no. I guess we're kind of coming up bang on the hour, so it's a last call out if there's any last questions from anyone. Otherwise, I think this might be the only time in the history of events that I've finished on time. So maybe we should stick to that. I'm not sure. I'm sure just for people to kind of follow up after, we will kind of pass on any comments or questions. Oh, I see one.
Oh, yeah, there's one.
So it says, if you had to write the same application again, would you engage a consultant again? Is the question there.
I suppose knowing what we know now and having a template, if you like, we might tackle it. But honestly, if you saw the application, it is the most complicated. It took me 6 months to figure it out, honestly, in terms of the spreadsheets and the documentation that comes with it. Like for us, between the 3 cities, we pooled our money and we invested with a consultancy group that are known to have a really high hit rate in getting it. So for that investment or bang for our buck was massive. But I'm very well aware that was because the local authority was able to provide that funding. As an arts organisation, you may never have that kind of funding to be able to do that. So we were in a fortunate position. If it were me in the same situation, I would certainly do it again. But I'm well aware that that's not a viable option for a lot of people. You know,
and it's certainly not the case here that people do. I know it is for a lot of European countries, and I'm sure maybe some of the leads do engage one, but it is the majority of people here don't. And I think the thing where you said 6 months, I mean, that is the guide, you know, in a way that people should be kind of working on things for kind of months in advance, but with proper planning. And then the EU is undergoing a process of simplification, but obviously European ideas of simplification are still highly bureaucratic applications, but people do it and it's absolutely possible as well. Okay. So I think I'll just say thank you again to Edel and Katherine. That was brilliant. We'll do a whole other event on project management and we'll call you again, but thanks so much. I mean, it was just absolutely so clear. I think this really is a best practice, as they call it, example of what the EU is trying to achieve with this funding. So thanks so much. And thanks everyone for coming. I will email both presentations on to you after. And if there's anything else we can get to you in terms of information, please get in touch. So thanks. And just from Aoife and myself, goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.